Well, thank you all for coming, and I want to thank Abby and Gundi. Thank you so much because I really appreciate having the opportunity to show my work here in Colorado Springs, which is a real treat. Um, I'm showing two bodies of work, my ramen pieces that I call Oriental Flavor, and this ongoing series that I call Notations. All of my work is an expression of identity, and I am inspired by everyday life and inspired by everything in it, from the beat, familiar routine of everyday life, as well as those crazy, remarkable moments that life sometimes brings. Um, One of those more ordinary moments was going to the grocery store and going down the ethnic aisle and passing these packages of ramen. And I was noting the flavors, and I would see beef flavor, chicken flavor, shrimp flavor, oriental flavor. And I thought, skirt, oriental flavor? What's that? What is that supposed to mean? So in subsequent years, I have noticed that they did change the name of the package to soy sauce flavor. But it did make me think about the larger, I guess, implications of what Oriental flavor is. What kind of other interpretations could you take if you looked at it more broadly? And I was thinking about my own Japanese heritage and how I might express that. Because I'm thinking of Oriental flavor in terms of Oriental style, Oriental attitudes, um, even assumptions, and even the assumptions that I might have about my own Japanese heritage. So I was thinking about the different things, and I was thinking sushi, um, kimonos, sakura, those little cherry blossoms. So I decided to pair these up with the instant ramen and just kind of play with them as a kind of more a formal aesthetic way. So the ones that I'm presenting here are origami, woodblock prints, nori, and traditional textile patterns. And I'm hoping that by sharing them with you, I'm inviting you to consider your own ways of defining your cultural heritages. The other series, my notations, are expressions of moments of time. And I'm thinking about the passage of time. I call them notations because I am making note of my thoughts and feelings. And I think of them as visual poems. I'm looking at them like how other poets probably do. I'm contemplating and distilling just lived experiences. Now, part of my reasons for calling this show Continuum is that, well, there's so many reasons, but one of the reasons is that I'm seeing this as a continuation of the last time I showed work here in Colorado Springs in 2020, and that was at the Monvo. And at the end of that show, I was showing notations of little grains of rice. They're just plain white rice. And I was having them kind of dance in different compositions, sometimes vertical, sometimes horizontal, but always with the thought of these as being individuals. Because as I was working with rice one day, I noticed how unique every single grain is. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are long and wide. Others have like a little different notch cut out at the top. And so I thought how much like individualized these are. And so I would put them down on the paper and I created kind of this halo around each one. I thought of them as individual lives. So here comes 2021, and this is early spring, late winter, and we're getting one of those overnight snows, but then the sun is beautiful the next day. And I was looking out my studio window, and I have this beautiful locust tree, and the snow was melting that came overnight, and it was just kind of falling. It was glistening, just like, and then it hit the asphalt and melted away, sparkling, sparkling, and then fading away. And I thought how much like life that is, that we have this moment where we're just sparkling and alive, and then we pass away. And I thought, how beautiful. How can I express that in my work? And I thought of those little bits of rice, and I thought, what if I silver leaf those to get that kind of that crystally sheen that I saw? And so that's what that first piece is. I created maybe about 3 or 4 of those. And then in mid-March, there was news about a shooting at the King Soopers in Boulder. And I grew up in Boulder, and the house that I grew up in was less than a mile away from that King Soopers. And that was a store that I went to all the time. And I had learned that 10 lives were lost. And I don't know, I somehow felt that that was a tragedy, not, I mean, of course, to those lives, but for everyone. And I thought, how can I honor those lives? And I already had this idea of this life with the silver leaf. So I thought I wanted to honor them more by gold leafing. So I created a piece using 10 grains of rice and really kind of accentuating that haloing, that life force that we all have. And I just love the way that looked after I was completed, it was done. And so I started playing with that, all with that thought of gold, honoring lives and thinking of these lives. And so different ways, different amounts, different kinds of rice in terms of how many in a piece. And sometimes I have a lot, and sometimes maybe just one. And I felt that really almost brought a feeling of resilience to the rice. At the end of the year of 2021, we had that huge windstorm, and I don't know, I'm sure it affected just about everybody here. Hundreds of trees went down. And up in my neighborhood where I live, I mean, 100 trees right there went down and were blocking roads. And, I thought how sad just to see all those trees down. And I remember going past the Lutheran church, and they had this beautiful stand of blue spruce, and they just went boom, like dominoes. Our neighbors had 2 big ponderosas, and they, boom, lost giant branches. And then we had a little opinion pine that kind of had those 2 branches like this, and one of them just went crash, and it crashed into our fence. And it was so sad to see this giant gaping wound from where that branch fell down. So I was thinking, well, I wanted to do something that spoke to that loss. So I gathered up some of those little pinyon branches, and I started looking at them and playing with them and thinking, how can I put them in a piece? And I thought, hey, if I put 2 of them together, it's almost like they're regrowing. They're going to grow. They're going to mend. They're going to somehow be unbroken. So I was starting to play with these, and I got one done. And then, of course, the holidays came, and then 2022 comes. And I thought, I love the beginning of a new year. There's so much hope. There's so much promise, right? And there's so much potential. But then 2022 ended up being a disaster for my family. I lost my mother. I lost my brother-in-law. I lost my father. And I lost a first cousin, all in a very short span. And I am just so grateful that I had my art and that I had a place that I could go, figuratively and literally, just to go find solace, just find stillness. And it was through this kind of contemplating that I came through with this idea of healing and mending. And I went back to those branches. And so I started creating these works with that in mind. And the branches became something more like I was thinking like family ties, family branches, family trees, roots, and tree of life. So I started doing these, but there's that gold on there, right? And I was thinking about kintsugi, which is this Japanese art of repairing bowls, generally ceramics, with gold. And instead of trying to glue this bowl together where you don't see where the breaks are, in kintsugi, you're actually mixing gold into the glue. And so now you've got these beautiful veins that show of where the bowl was broken, but now it's put together again. So I was thinking of that in terms of just healing in general. Like, how beautiful can something be that once was broken and now is healed? And maybe, more beautiful than it was before it was broken. So that is thinking behind these pieces. That kind of took me all through 2022. And then now behind you are what I'm calling the security envelope pieces that I have done from 2023 till up to now. And in total, I've done about 60 of them, but I'm showing just 8 of them for you right now. When your parents pass, there are so many legal things, right, in terms of settling an estate. And there are so many um, documents that come in the mail in these security envelopes. And one day I was opening one of them and I thought, wow, look how cool the inside of these envelopes are. They're like different patterns, different colors. Some are double windows, and the size of the windows change. Sometimes they're very big, sometimes they're very small. And so I just started playing with those. And I love the idea of the security envelope, just security, this idea of safety, of family and home, but also security like identity. Right? This little piece of paper is supposed to keep your identity safe. And since I'm so interested in this idea of identity and expressing identity, I found these security envelopes to be a perfect way to continue that. And now I'm just enamored by the envelopes themselves, and I've just been having a lot of fun playing with them. I realize that a lot of the sources for my work come from a place of sadness, but I feel that in the process of contemplation, of building these layers of meaning and metaphor, that I'm actually creating these images of hope and pieces that are full of life. And by sharing them, I'm hoping too that I'm connecting with all of you and in a very heartfelt way. Finish in another case of serendipity. A couple days ago, I received a newsletter from a place called the Center of Action and Contemplation in New Mexico. And it is we're just going to read a few excerpts from this, an essay. And the essay was written by Drew Jackson, and he is a poet. And since I think of my work as visual poems, this really spoke to me. It's titled Poetry for When the World Burns. I have found that my soul longs for a place to bring my honest questions and wrestlings. a place comfortable with mystery and uncertainty, a spacious place. Poetry has given me permission to fall into mystery and embrace what is unanswerable, because poetry has a way of welcoming tension without the need to resolve it. In a world that seems to be falling apart all around us, I believe the ability to accept and embrace the seeming contradictions of our world, life and death, beauty and brutality, is essential to our flourishing and evolution as human beings. A poem contains multitudes in one word, one line, one stanza, and so do we. So does life. When I forget beauty, poetry is there to invite me to slow down and notice the small blossoms of new creation breaking through. When I become numb to heartache, poetry brings me back in touch with the tears of the world. Thank you. Any questions about any of the work? Very carefully and with time. It's just mark making. Yeah. So it's using pencil. No, it's a little just a gesture like this, just going back and forth. Pencil. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot about just pressure. Since it is rag paper, I do have to have like some softer lead and then some harder lead for the lighter areas. But yeah, it's just going back and forth. Yeah. Yeah. I do the rice first. Yeah. Yeah. But the gold leaf comes after. Yeah. Yeah, I already have the right. So I have to mask around the rice and then gold leaf. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Margaret, you've said that much of this work was inspired by a moment,
Mhm.
but in the making,
Yeah.
it's really
It is.
extended many.
That's right. Yeah, but it's influenced by that one moment in life.
So it's a sustaining.
But it is, yeah. But it evolves over time, right? Because as I'm working, I'm thinking about different meanings that it can have too. And it grows in that way. It changes from maybe that initial thought to, oh, it's all these other connections. Yeah. Now, nobody likes to get those kind of letters in the mail, regardless. I mean, if it's like, it means it's something serious, right? Generally. So, but yeah, I do look forward to especially a security envelope with that window. Yeah, yeah, thank you. And they're really unique. Yeah, some of them are really unique. And I'm beginning to think some of them are actually hand drawn, the original, the first, because I'm wondering if there's something about readers that can't see through something that's hand drawn versus something that's predictable. I'm not sure because I don't know why they would be kind of unusual, but not regular. Just why not just a simple grid or something? I had herringbone or something, but they're usually quite different. This came from a textbook, a physics textbook, and in it I'm thinking about my dad and I'm honoring him. But it's got so much history to it, just also as a textbook. And I just love the way the lines kind of play with each other in that too. It is yeah, that's a textbook. Yeah, but yeah, but it has these echoes for me. Yeah, physics. Yeah. Oh, yeah, all of my work. Yeah, but it did start with these notation drawings. I've been doing these for a long time, and I took a big break in the middle of it all But but the reason for that big break is I was doing a lot of watercolors actually. These really detailed little watercolors. Again, they're non-representational, but still boom, 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 and with color, and usually like often with a circle, kind of with a halo too. Um, and kind of near the end, I found myself finding this beautiful form, and it was the circle and the square. And to me, that represented everything. Like here's this finiteness, and yet there's this circle in there that felt like that's the infinite. And somehow they're working together, and it's this perfect duality. Right. So after I did that, I thought, I'm done. What else is there to say? I mean, that seems so complete. But then I did find some other things, obviously, to start expressing in my artwork, and I stayed with that square. And occasionally I still do that circle in the square piece too. I think Jean has one of them. Yeah. And the size was because I just kind of fell upon this size. And I knew, like, when I started these up again in 2016, that I knew I wanted to have a consistency to them. And everything that I fell upon, but whatever I was sketching in a sketchbook or found out in the world that I would want to collage, always fell within this particular size. So I just kept it, and I've been pretty dedicated to it. Thank you. Oh, okay.